Hi, this is Steve Rigolosi, and today's forgotten mystery is, drumroll please, The TRYST by Michael Dibdin. This is copyright 1989 by Simon & Schuster, an imprint known as Summit Books, which I don't think lasted all that long. So some of you watching this video may know Dibdin through his successful series character Aurelio Zen, based in Italy, land of my forefathers and a wonderful locale. And like a lot of writers who wrote series characters, Dibdin stepped out beyond those boundaries occasionally and wrote standalones. And I have to say, even though I like the Aurelio Zen books, I like all of his standalones better than I like any one of the Aurelio Zen books. There must be something freeing about being kind of set loose from the boundaries of your setting, your characters, your cast, your readers' expectations, and doing something really, really different and creative, which is, an important part of the writer's life and the writer's mind. The challenge is, of course, then, will your readers follow you to a non-series book, and will your publisher even be interested? Some of them just are not. So what we find here with Summit Books is them not really knowing how to categorize this book. I don't know if you can see on the cover here. It's kind of like a strange M.C. Escher kind of cover. It says, "A mystery by." I'm sorry, this is not a mystery. This is a publisher not knowing how to classify the book because it doesn't really easily lend itself to classification. So they figure, well, Dibdin is known for mysteries. People are going to look at this, expect a mystery, so we slap a mystery on the cover. I don't care for that practice. I think that publishers should be honest in terms of marketing their products, their books, and saying what it really is. I mean, I can't tell you how many nonfiction books I've read in the last few years that make a sort of promise in their subtitle that is not fulfilled in the book. It's catchy. It's a great catchphrase. It's a great way to an elevator pitch for the book, but it's not accurate. And that's not something I really go for. However, I like this book so much, I'm willing to forgive the publisher. Another interesting thing about Dibdin, who is no longer with us, is that he was married to the novelist K.K. Beck. And I've never read any of her books, but I think I'm going to look them up because she's well known and well respected, and so I've got to add her to my TBR pile. Now, the reason I say that the TRYST is not a mystery is because it isn't. The way I would classify it is a modern Gothic with elements of mystery and the supernatural and the spiritual. The best comparisons I can make are to Ruth Rendell, when Ruth Rendell was writing in her sort of, darkly psychologically penetrating fashion, sometimes in the Barbara Vine books and sometimes under her own name, usually not the Wexfords, but the non-Wexfords. That sort of style, or similar to another writer who I really like, Patrick McGrath, and I recommend his book Asylum highly. He's just a great writer. And even, I almost hesitate to make this comparison because she's sort of polarizing, Joyce Carol Oates. If you're an Oates fan and you like her when she's in her Gothic mode with lots of strange goings on and odd dovetailings and unresolved endings, then this is the book for you. The first chapter is a masterclass in writing. It's so impressive. He's such a good writer. just beautiful sentences, beautiful paragraphs, and the psychological insight. The first chapter sets up the heroine and her husband as being in this very passive aggressive, combative marriage where a lot is not said. And it's almost like a more refined George and Martha from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, except Aileen and her husband Douglas, really, their digs are extremely subtle and there's not a lot of screaming going on. And what makes the first chapter so amazing to read and think about is you have to wonder, because the story is told through Aileen's viewpoint, is she really involved in this passive-aggressive marriage, or is she just imagining it? Right? Is she imagining this conflict with her husband that doesn't really exist? Is he being as passive-aggressive with her as she thinks he is? I'll leave it to you to find out if you read the book. So, as a writer, Dibdin really top-notch. And he uses another device in this book that I, as a reader, love, which is he tells two stories side by side, kind of alternating by chapter. One is the story of Aileen, who is sort of a psychological social worker. And she is given care of a disturbed teenage boy who isn't really mentally ill, but wants to be institutionalized. And for some reason, he reminds her of the child that she lost in a car accident years ago while she was pregnant. The child was never born. And I have to say, I think this may be the only book I've ever read that uses the dead child gambit in a way that has not made me roll my eyes. The dead child thing is such a cheap and easy way to get sympathy for a reader. It requires no effort on the writer's part. You've automatically made your protagonist sympathetic when you give them a dead kid or a dead spouse. But a dead kid is better for instant sympathy. I mean, let's just face it. This book uses that device so well, and it's not to create sympathy for Aileen. It's to create this sort of gothic sense that this young man she feels a connection to him because she feels that he's what her child would have grown into if he had lived. I thought that was fascinating, and that was great. And it's one of the reasons why she feels so connected to him. So the one story is her trying to figure out what's going on with him. The other story follows him, the boy, Gary, whose real name is Stephen, great name, who is a street child who lives with, he lives with squatters in, slum housing, and they're mean to him, of course, but they let him hang around, and he befriends an older man who hasn't left his house in 20 years, and he ends up running errands for the guy. And that guy has a whole gothic history of his own that he tells Gary/Stephen when Stephen visits. And so they create this, they form this kind of bond, although Gary is very, very suspicious of it. And from there, the plots just sort of intertwine, and they lead to something very sad, and then an ending that is a bit of a time warp, and very gothic, and very spiritual, and very mind-expanding. So I have to say, I love this book. I thought it was well told. I thought the writing was superb. I thought it was something new under the sun. All of that said, I recognize that my tastes are a little quirky. That, if you watch these videos, you know that I like to read a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily on the bestseller list. And because I'm a writer myself, I admire writers and books that try to do something new, that don't just follow formula, that are very writerly in that they come from a deep place within the writer, but that are also readerly in that the writer is cognizant of the reader's experience and wants to make sure that it's a good story well told, instead of a lot of navel gazing by some pretentious writer or some pretentious main character. So I recommend this, but with the caveat that it is quirky. It's not necessarily fast reading, but I do guarantee that if you like that, well, how can I guarantee anything? But I think that if you read that first chapter and you like it, you will really like the book. If you read the first chapter and think, it's not enough of a traditional mystery or enough of a traditional suspense story for me, then I would say probably don't spend your time reading it, because I don't think it will be the book for you. So I'm pleased to give this book a really excellent review and to encourage you to check out Michael Dibdin. He's a find, and I was really happy that I found this book in a used bookstore. I think the cover is crappy, and I think it's not the mystery that it's billed to be. But beside all that aside, none of it matters, because it is a great book. When I come back next time, I have something for you that will knock your socks off. I am almost finished with it, and you will hear me gush about it in the next video. But I won't preempt myself. I'll just say good night and thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.